In progress.
Okay, recording has started, so let's get started. Welcome to today's Career Insight Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to focus on having the confidence to talk about yourself and your achievements. So we do these lunch and learns every week, trying to get some more insight into some of the challenges that you have in your career and what you can do about them. And in actual fact, before I start, if anybody has any ideas for any content they would like, just DM me in LinkedIn or put it in the chat bar. It'd be interesting to know what you'd like to see over the course of the next few months as I put together the agenda. If we haven't met before, my name is Julie Cullen and I specialise in helping women to build their confidence in the workplace. Last week we spoke about 2 behaviours that can sabotage your career. Behaviour number 1 was this idea of working really, really hard and then waiting for someone to notice and reward you, and the importance of being able to speak up to let people know what you want and how they can help you to achieve it. And then behaviour number 2 was about putting your job before your career. So it's really important that if you want to progress your career, that you carve out time to think about what you want for your future and to start working on a plan to help you achieve that goal. So that was the 2 behaviours we talked about last week. And if you missed that, actually, I'm just going to share the link in the chat so that if you want to go and take a look at that, you can do that later. Don't do it right now, please. Keep watching this video, because today I'm going to talk about a third behaviour that's closely linked to the first 2 and that can really seriously impact you as you progress through your career. So share with me in the comments, how do you feel about speaking up about yourself, advocating for yourself, telling people how good you are and what amazing results you achieve? Let me know, is that in your comfort zone or is that just well out your comfort zone? Because one of the things that's important to realise is that it's your job to ensure that people know what you're doing. It's your job to make sure they notice you. It's not somebody else's, it's yours. So if you lack the confidence to talk about your achievements and to own and promote your abilities, to make sure people notice you, this can be quite a challenge. But it is, as I say, it's a really important part of your career strategy if you want recognition, if you want success, if you want to progress up the career ladder. Having the confidence to talk about yourself is so important. So let me know in the comments, how easy or difficult do you find it to talk about your achievements, to brag about what you do, to big yourself up? How good is your elevator pitch? Okay, because a lot of women in particular seem uncomfortable using the I word, putting the focus on themselves. So they always try to spread the credit around. Now this might make them feel like good people, but it doesn't help their careers. Is that familiar to you? Do you feel uncomfortable claiming your achievements, or do you play down your role or the difficulty of the challenge you faced? I just see a comment there. I've started to have a folder with feedback from colleagues and customers, and then I take that into my quarterly review, or sometimes I do forward the positive feedback I received to my boss. Fantastic, Diana. That's exactly the kind of thing you want to be doing. Developing that confidence to say, I'm really good, and here's some evidence to prove that. But what we're talking about here today is actually being able to verbally say it as well. So not just in certain scenarios, because it's one of the things that I find quite interesting. A lot of people get comfortable doing it in their performance reviews, especially if it's documented. And then as soon as they bump into someone of any importance, all of a sudden it goes out the window. So think about where it is you find it the biggest challenge to talk about yourself. And one of the reasons that women often give for this behaviour is based on their belief that claiming their achievements is some kind of shameless self-promotion. It's obnoxious or it's braggy. They can actually feel that they are being morally superior, letting their work speak for itself rather than brown-nosing with the boss, talking about all the good work they've been doing and just get themselves noticed. Okay, and there's a great story that I'm going to share with you that demonstrates this really, really well. So it's from a book called How Women Rise by Sally Helgesen, and there's a second author whose name's escaped me for the moment, but it's a great book, and in it there's a story that demonstrates the impact that can have if you don't use every opportunity to talk about yourself and your achievements. And what I love about this story as well is that it demonstrates that it's not just as you're at the lower end of the career ladder. The woman that I'm about to talk about, she was the executive director of an organisation. So someone you would think would be very good and competent about talking about herself. So the story is about these two individuals who were brought together to co-chair a really big high-profile charity event. So Amy, as I mentioned, she was the executive director of a small arts foundation. And then there was Mitch. Mitch was the head of a large not-for-profit organisation. So the two of them were brought together to create this event. And they worked really, really well together, right? They delivered a brilliant event. It was great results. Everybody said so. The day after the event, Amy was interviewed by a local reporter to ask what she believed had contributed to the event's remarkable success. So think about the question. She was being asked what contributed to the event's remarkable success. What Amy did was spoke really enthusiastically about her collaboration with Mitch, talked about his efforts, his contribution. She credited everybody on the team for their hard work and their superb planning. What many of us would do in that situation. When the article appeared the next day, it sent Amy into shock. Because as well as interviewing her, the reporter had also interviewed Mitch. But how Mitch chose to describe the event was very different to Amy's description. And I'm going to actually read a quote from her, taken from the book. So what she said was, "I couldn't believe it. He never even mentioned me. He basically took credit for everything that had gone right and used the interview to promote himself and his organisation. Since I also spent most of my time giving him credit, he came off as the linchpin and sole driving force behind the event. People all over town were calling to congratulate him. I thought we'd been a real team, but apparently he didn't see it that way. I had no idea he was self-centred." So that was Amy's interpretation of what happened in that situation. Now, was she right? Was Mitch being a selfish, self-centred and self-serving individual? Now, Mitch is the regional director of an international non-profit, and a big part of his job is to generate publicity for his organisation. And he's also very interested in ensuring that his board knows that he's doing a good job in promoting the company. So is that wrong? Is he really being self-centred, or is he just doing what his bosses expect him to do? The more relevant question is why Amy, given the opportunity to shine a light on her work and her organisation, felt compelled to spend the entire interview talking about Mitch. So think about that. How often do you do that? I remember talking about having this conversation with someone in the past, and they had said, well, it's my job as I'm the team leader, I'm supposed to say what a wonderful work the team does. Yes, absolutely you are. But you're also responsible for saying what a wonderful job you're doing as well. So why did Amy feel necessary to speak about Mitch? No, he's clearly a successful leader who has no problem speaking up for himself. Why does she feel the need to speak up for him? Okay, so think about it. Do you do that? Do you spend more time telling everyone who will listen how amazing other people in your team are and avoid telling them how amazing you are? Amy felt really comfortable putting the spotlight on Mitch because she just assumed he would do the same for her when being interviewed by the reporter. But it never occurred to Mitch that Amy would fail to speak up on her own behalf and raise the profile of her organisation. To quote Mitch, he said, "It's not my job to carry her water," was the phrase he used. "She's in a leadership position. Doesn't she know how this works?" So Amy and Mitch were operating from entirely different perspectives. She used the interview as an opportunity to be generous and supportive. He focused on doing what he believed to be his job and putting the focus on him and his organisation. So for a while, Amy comforted herself with the notion that she had shown herself to be the better person than Mitch in her head. But she was given a really rude jolt when she learned that the board of her organisation was less than thrilled with her failure to give adequate attention to the foundation on whose behalf she was working. That's who she was representing. That's who she should have been speaking up about. Her people, herself, her organisation. Mitch was more than capable of doing the same for his. And it was that point that Amy realised that she was often in the habit of turning the spotlight onto other people. So think of these examples. If a colleague commented on her well-run office, she automatically credited her assistant. If a donor told her he'd received a strong report on a partnership initiative that she had led, she praised the partner, failing to put any spotlight on the fact that she had led the initiative. This kind of behaviour felt very normal to her, feels very normal to a lot of us. It feels like a very gracious way of responding and very much in line with how Amy had been brought up to share the praise. But that wasn't serving her well in the workplace. She was forgetting that she also needs to advocate for herself and not rely on other people to do it for her. Excuse me, I'm going to take a frog my throat there. A wee sip of water to help. So, as she delved deeper into understanding her behaviour, she was having a chat with a friend. And her friend pointed out to her that whenever she was given a compliment, she used it as an opportunity to point out all her flaws. Right, now I want you to think about this. How many times do you do this? When somebody says, good job, what is your response? And what Amy's friend asked her was, why are you contradicting someone when they're saying something nice about you? Because that's what you're doing. Somebody just giving you a compliment, and instead of acknowledging it gracefully, you start pointing out all your flaws. So think about how you might respond. Maybe you might respond with comments like, oh, it would have been so much better if I'd just had a little more time. Or, it didn't quite turn out how I hoped. Or, thanks, I got lucky with. So think about that. You're turning the focus onto every little perceived flaw that you feel lets down your work, or deferring the attention from yourself and onto someone else. So let me know in the comments if you do that. Ask yourself why you do it. Why are you sabotaging your work to the very person who has just praised it? You're probably putting them off giving you any praise in the future because they're thinking, why bother? She's not listening. I thought she did a great job. She's telling me she didn't. That's what's happening in that scenario. You might think you're being modest, but you're not. You're just rejecting the praise that you've just been given. So imagine how that feels to the person that's just given it. Okay, let me know in the comments. Is that something that you do? Ask yourself why you do it. So a really simple way to stop this sabotaging behaviour is just to say thank you and leave it there. No deferrals, no false modesty, no protestations. Just simply say thank you. Try it. You know, if you struggle to claim credit for your achievements, it can cost you throughout your career. The costs will be highest when you're asking for that pay rise, when you're asking for that promotion, or you're trying to move to the next level in your career. Speaking up about what you contribute and detailing why you're qualified does not make you self-centered or self-serving. Effectively marketing yourself is an important part of managing your career and key to help you reach the next level of success. So there's two things that are covered there. So before I summarise it, if you've got any questions or feedback, now would be a good time to drop them in the chat bar. Okay, so the first thing to think about is what we just mentioned there, is about starting to accept compliments with grace. It's And next time you get a compliment, if you feel that urge to point out the flaw in the spreadsheet or the thing that you missed at the presentation, just don't. Just say thanks. Or even better, thanks. I really appreciate the feedback. I really appreciate that you took time to give me the feedback. And leave it at that. As you grow more confident, how about highlighting what you're more proud of? Thanks. I really appreciate the feedback. I was particularly pleased with how the presentation flowed. Or thanks. I'm pleased how I was able to pull it together at such short notice. The feedback has been amazing. So you're saying thanks for the feedback, but you're also then highlighting what you're proud of. You can also ask the question of the other person. What was your highlight? What did you think was most effective? But start thinking about, do not defer, deflect, or pass praise from yourself onto someone else. Accept it with grace and accept it proudly and confidently. Okay, and then the next part was learning to talk positively about your work. So Diana had mentioned earlier about doing that for performance reviews and things. So keeping a folder with lots of great feedback, which is a brilliant, brilliant thing to do. You should do that every Friday. Just jot down some things that were great that week. And then the other thing to think about is the words that you use. So the great place to practice that is at your performance review. But then you want to take it to the next level that you can use it in conversation with people that you meet. So you want to be using strong, powerful language like I achieved, I managed, I was responsible for, I led. Those are the things that Amy should have been saying about the event. Oh yeah, I'm so proud that I was able to lead this amazing team. You can still say it's an amazing team, but you led it. Make sure that's understood. I remember a colleague one time, we were going to a networking event, and it was her first kind of time. She was a little bit nervous, and I said, well, how are you going to introduce yourself? And she said, I've got to introduce myself as I work in the name of the team. And I was like, but she's the team leader. No, you lead the team. Okay, so think about the language. And in actual fact, there's a workbook that I use with my clients. I'm just going to grab the link for you now. And I'm going to drop it in the chat bar. So this is a document that I use with lots of my clients when preparing them for their performance review. So it gets you thinking about the language that you use, the spotlight that you're putting on yourself, using phrases like I managed, I led, I delivered, I achieved, I accomplished. I think there's about 100 words in this document, the appendix at the bottom of the document, that you can use. But the document gets you thinking about, like what you were saying there, Diana, about collecting evidence from feedback from other people, jotting down your own evidence. By the time you come to the performance review, you don't have to go searching for the evidence because you've got it, because you're doing it every Friday or once a month and just collecting it all. So think about that. Now I've seen some comments, I'm just going to take a quick look before we finish up. I think it's in our nature as women, we do so much around the clock without any reward or recognition for us. This unfortunately comes naturally. It's natural for men to put themselves in the light because they often work outside, while women as mother, homemaker and daughter carry out a lot of additional things besides the daily job. Yeah, and there's various different reasons for it, and a lot of people I speak to kind of also put it down to just the way you're brought up, and we have different experiences through our life in terms of how we're brought up. And so learning to be able to advocate for yourself and use strong language and be proud of what you've achieved can feel uncomfortable. And I have to admit, not just for women, I have met some men that I've coached that have had the same challenge. So I'd say, rather than saying it's a woman challenge, it's like if you have a sort of, it's a feminine side of your personality. So everyone has a masculine and a feminine side, and it's dependent on which is the more dominant will depend on how you can react in those situations. So if you are being modest a lot of the time, it's about learning to have that confidence to talk up about yourself and your achievements. Okay, and as I mentioned, that doesn't mean to say you have to do it at anybody else's expense. You can still promote other people's efforts. You just don't do it at your own expense. Don't lose sight of the fact that you also have to talk about yourself. So a good leader will always shine a spotlight on other people's work, but will also shine a spotlight on their own. Okay, and that's what I want you to think about. So I hope you found that helpful. If there are any questions, now's a quick time to get them slotted in, because that's the wrap up now. I've managed to keep it in the 20 to 30 minute timeline as promised. So let me know if there are any questions. If not, I'll leave it there, and I will wish you all a happy Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your weekend, and hope to see some of you next week. And I haven't made a note of what I'm talking about next week. Let me see, what are we talking about next week? Let me have a check in the diary. And I will let you know. That's a bit embarrassing. I've usually got that written down. So let me just go on to Zoom and see what we are talking about next week. So next week we are talking about how to prime yourself for success. Okay, so what are some of the things that you can do to set yourself up to have a successful career? And that's the topic for next week. Okay, so I can see no questions in the chat bar. If any questions come to you later on, feel free to DM me in Zoom. And also, wee reminder, if there are topics that you would like to hear about on these sessions, just drop me a DM in LinkedIn and I can add them to the list. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Thank you.